Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion about media production. And our second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. But today we're going to just do more Q&A. One of the things that's happening over the next couple weeks, maybe the next month, is that we're doing in transitions. We actually broke down the system. So our system that we've had for the last couple years is now in pieces. It's in boxes. There's an empty rack there, and this is running out of a mirror system, and so we're going to be making sure that this all works and testing it and pulling all those things together. And so instead of doing as many of the second hours with external guests and so on and so forth, we're going to do some more internal things. You want to check the email. We're going to be doing some labs. We're going to see how that goes. And so for the Q&A days, which you'll see more often during the next couple weeks, we'll answer questions until you stop asking questions. It may be 2 hours, it may not. It's up to 2 hours, but it might be shorter. We'll also jump into the labs early if we don't have as many questions, but we have an incredible panel here today. I was kind of really surprised. I came in on Monday, and there's probably a couple centuries worth of knowledge, like, all packed in here. So this is a great day to ask questions for that second hour. I think we're going to have a great time with the next couple weeks. In fact, I think we may decide, well, maybe what were we doing with those second hours? So we're going to have a lot of fun with that. So stay tuned. We'll give you some more announcements of what's coming up. We'll give you a list of that a little later today. But you can ask questions in Makana right now, and you can use this little QR code here, or you can just go to askofficehours.global and ask those questions there, and you can ask them 24/7. In fact, some of the questions today came in sometime over yesterday. Someone was like, oh, I got a question, and they just threw it in there. So, and you can do that. So you can ask those questions 24/7 with askofficehours.global, or you can ask them in Makana on the day of the event and vote on those questions, so that we know which ones you'd like us to ask first. Let's go jump into those questions. Bill, what do we have?
Well, our first one comes off that QR code system, and it looks like it's timestamps for 2:33 in the morning. So, making Alex's point, anytime. It's from Frank Wilson in Bali, Indonesia. And Frank asks, we have 50 guests sitting in 2 rows in a 30-foot circle in an open pavilion using handheld Shure wireless microphones. The pavilion does not have walls and a very high gabled roof. Question is, where's the best place to position 4 speakers? And he thinks maybe in a circle, in the center of a circle facing out. We didn't get the rest of that, so I think it hit the limit, but that's basically what Frank wrote.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I'll start out, Frank. You got cut off there, so I'm not sure we're referring to speakers as in devices that make sound or people that are speaking. But in either case, I would do what your A suggestion is: the center of the circle facing out. And if it's the speakers, the devices, I'd hang them up closer on the ceiling, maybe tilted down to the audience a little bit, and get them up high as you can. If it's the people, I'd place them in a semicircle, best you can, so that everybody has a good view and can hear what's going on.
Yeah, I think one thing he don't notice, I think he was talking about, is the fact that the ceiling's pretty high, so hanging those speakers may be difficult. What we've done in the past for this is either a semicircle or a full circle. We have oftentimes put the speakers kind of, here, and here, and we've raised this up about 18 inches, so about half a meter. We'll raise that up so that the speakers are either sitting or standing on this area, and then we put these little long speakers down below, and then you have all the people out here. 50 people is not that much in 2 rows. I mean, for many people, they would be able to do that I would do that without any amplification. But that's if they have stage background, they will. If not, if they're a little quieter spoken, those little speakers there. It is not optimal, as Mitch has kind of alluded to. It is, you're going to hit people as it goes out, and so it's going to get absorbed by that front row. I'd worry more about it if it was 6 rows or 8 rows deep, but at 2 rows of people or 3 rows of people, it'll be enough amplification to work, and it'll be relatively easy to set up. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, unless I read this wrong, though, I think this is actually theater in the round. So the 30-foot circle, he says we have 50 guests sitting in 2 rows in a 30-foot circle. So if that's the case, you don't have much depth each side of each quadrant of the 30-foot circle only has 2 rows of people. So I would think maybe just 4 floor wedges kind of covering those 4 areas evenly might be all you need. You don't really have to get it up high
You could,
because there's really not much audience block.
well, and again, you could do it in the same structure that I said, just move it all the way around. And we've done that in the past. You do have to be careful. We did have to use, I think we used the WLM 185s, to do those, the Sures. They're going to be a hypercardio or a cardioid, not a hypercardioid. That's the 184. But the 185 is a cardioid, and we did use those for those wedges that we put down there below to keep it going in the right direction. I will tell you though that a 30-foot circle with 50 will be 50 people. like I don't know how you'll have almost in the first row you'll have almost everybody if you do it in the round. If you do it half circle, you'll end up with 50 in 2 rows. I can just tell you from my experience that a 30-foot diameter divided by a 30-foot diameter divided by 2 feet will be 45 chairs. Anyway, so go ahead, Jeffrey.
So after we've been picking this apart a little bit, I think they had option A, which was center going out, and I bet you option B was from behind the people coming in. And I think that's where the better option is, because then you can get those speakers up as high as possible and point them in and point them down towards the front.
I will say that I would never point speakers at the speakers, at the people with mics. Like I would never like that. That's the only thing that I won't do is point speakers at the microphones. So so that'd be the only thing that I probably wouldn't go out in. I'd always go from in out, away from the speakers there, because otherwise feedback will be a thing. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Mike Edwards in Brooklyn, New York, and Mike starts with, "Morning, everyone. What does the panel think of Sonnet's new SoundWire, a transformer balanced USB-C audio interface built into a rugged 3-meter-long cable?"
Go ahead, Courtney.
I took a look at this last night, the video. This is what it looks like. It's basically a USB adapter, sound adapter, USB-C, that goes through, looks like about a 15 to 20 foot cable, nice braided, and it has 2 analog transformers in each of those male XLR connectors. And they're encapsulated in, they're sealed in epoxy or something. When he opens them up, you see that they've been potted so that you can't really get to them if there's a problem. But the one thing that worries me is the fact that here you can see how when he took the cover off one of the XLRs, so there's a small transformer inside there. So it goes from unbalanced to balanced in each connector. And that's the only thing that worries me is so you're sending unbalanced through the long cable, and it only becomes balanced there at the end. So you might be able to pick up some hum, unless it's a really good, if it's a really good double shielded cable going out, that should be fine. And if it's only line level, then it should be fine too. I don't think it said whether it was line or mic level, but I assume it's line level since there's some type of A to D converter inside the USB-C connector.
Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
It depends on whether you're sending from the transformer to the other side, which would be unbalanced to the. But then you would need 2 transformers. So I question whether or not it's only one direction, or does it asynchronous?
It's an output, I believe.
It's an output
because of the polarity of the Canon connector there.
Then you can get away with one set of transformers in the connector.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like I don't understand why you would have a. So if it's digital from the USB-C and then is converted in, the only way I could see this working is if it was digital from the USB-C to the Neutrik connector, so it's not converted to audio. But if it's converted to audio at the USB-C, dead in the water. Like I'm not interested. I'm not interested in that cable. But if it's converted, if it's coming out and getting converted at the connector, so if all the work is being done at the connector, that's a great solution. But if it's not being converted at the connector, I'm not interested. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, sorry, I was just going to follow up with if it's being done at the connector, you'd have to have 2 D to A converters, one in each, and you'd have to carry power down the cable to get to them.
You could do that though. I mean, you could definitely make that work, and it'd be interesting to find. We should reach out to them and find out, because if it's again putting analog And the whole point of balanced is to run the cable. Like, so
Yeah,
it's,
that was my point. Yeah, you're running unbalanced
Mm.
until you get to the connector, and then balancing it.
yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, go ahead,
Depends on
Chris.
what direction it's going.
They should be
was just
clear
gonna-
about it. What I will say is they should be clear about it if it's going to be where it's being converted to analog audio. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna say this seems like a April Fool's thing, and I have Photoshop too. I've made a few, pretend cables that seem like they're very useful. XLR to 30 amp. That's a good one. That's a pretty good
Power
one to
cut.
have around. This is good. Speaker to air hose. And look there, I have it right here. I did this a couple of years ago.
Yeah, there you go.
It seems fake to me.
I don't think it's fake. I think it's just, and maybe it might be clean in many instances. I mean, it could be they have really good cable. They seem to be very excited about their cables. I mean, I'm very excited about the idea. I mean, I think the idea is great. I'm a little concerned about the idea that idea would be unbalanced for X number of feet and then going into balanced. It seems crazy. Go ahead, CJ.
This one is my favorite one for charging iPhones quickly.
It's all white. I can't see it. It's blown out.
It's blown out. Sorry about that.
Yeah, go ahead, CJ.
Okay. All I was gonna say is according to the website, they do say it happens in the USB-C connector.
Yeah, so that's
This
crazy.
is 32-bit in the USB-C. So that's the.
Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, that reading that caused me. At first I was thinking, okay, if they're going to digital at the USB-C and they're keeping it digital all the way and only doing the D to A conversion at the two XLRs on the end, that could be great. But that doesn't seem like that's what they're
And
doing.
if they had even if they had the USB conversion not in those things, but right at the very end, like right before they Y, and it
Right.
just goes, I'm going to go into this, but I don't. I mean, the thing is that this is basically a pod DI at that point. And the thing that, like, if I'm at an event and I hear buzz, the first thing I look for is if I hear any buzz at all, the first thing I'll do is I'll look to make sure we don't have a malt box somewhere, like the press is or people are tying into something. And the second thing I'll look for is somebody with a pod DI. Like, I just walk down the back of the thing and I just pull the pod DI out and the buzz goes away. And I'm like, you're gonna have to find another box for that. Like that's you're causing. And of course they can't hear it. Like when you're in the venue folks, that's why they use pod DIs, is because they can't hear the buzz, among everything else. And in the stream we can hear it. So I'm just, anyway, next question.
Vincent Alvarez in Bellingham, Washington's up next. She says, we currently do podium with PowerPoint conferences, camera to Magewell to PC to Zoom. We want to be leaner. Is there a way to eliminate the PC and still use Zoom? Is there a device that connects to a camera and streams directly to Zoom? And his budget is US $1,000.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I tried to think of a way. I mean, everything from the Fire Cube, which is Amazon's little device that if you add a USB adapter, you can launch Zoom on that. But I'm just wondering why you would want to get rid of the PC to be that streamlined. A friend of mine during COVID, our church had a ton of these Teradek encoders, and they were trying to figure out a way to still use them but get into Zoom. So he wrote a script which fires up. You could actually go to it. It's streamtomeeting.com, and stream to meeting will allow you to basically shoot from a little box like a Teradek, an RTMP feed into Zoom. It fires up an AWS instance, and it does cost about $1 an hour. It's running, or no, $7.50. Sorry. So yeah, that's one way. Streamtomeeting.com. But I did go through and look at every single Zoom room appliance, and I don't see anything on there that would be something worthy of stripping out your PC, because that's
Yeah, sort of.
basically you need a way to get in. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like there's a Polycom solution or something else, but I couldn't. There's nothing out there that just does I/O directly.
Well, there is, but it'd be really expensive, and it does
Right,
a bunch
right,
of other
right.
stuff like its own camera and its own speaker
Yeah.
and its own audio input. So you may as well just use a Mac Mini or small form PC NUC. Or
Yeah, I mean,
something.
like a used M1 Mac Mini is all you need. I know it's more, and the reason I would say Mac Mini at that price is because of the 4-core limit. That a lot of the PCs at that rate, I don't think they're underneath the requirement to get 1080p out. I think is the
And if you
issue
do
there.
go the Amazon Cube route, it only does 720. I've tested it. So it is a cheap solution, though. It's the cheapest that I've found because those things are like $129. And then you just need the adapter. It's a It's a little USB to, they have like the small little USB, micro USB, I believe it is, to USB adapter, and then it'll work.
Next question.
Next one comes from Wes Decker in Fort Worth, Texas. I'd like to create a tutorial of how to build a complex physical model in phases for the Vision Pro. Instead of shooting a time-lapse video of the build, I'd like to create a time-lapse 3D model and turn that into a 3D video of the build. Is that possible? Any ideas?
Go, Jason.
If I understand your question correctly, the easiest way to do that would be to version control your 3D model. So it's just a USDZ that is done in phases, and you can differentiate that with color or with time. It's the easiest way I can think to do it.
Go ahead, Chris.
And I couldn't really understand the question either. If the question is, can I make a time lapse of me building this 3D model? There's different apps that do it. I don't know. I know in the Mac world, there's an app called Screen Ninja. You can set how often you want it to take a frame, what frame rate to embed into the MOV that it makes, and it's kind of fun. I did it once on a day of real deep After Effects. Play it back and like, wow, look at me, I'm doing a lot of work today.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a bunch of these for a variety of different subjects. What we're doing is building the entire object in 3D, and then you're animating all of those bits and pieces. So you have them, and you may have them. The question is how complicated is the object, and do the objects interact with each other? So the things you get into is like gear assemblies become a little bit more difficult because those gears are actually running at a certain thing, and they'll run over each other. So you really have to get the cadence of exactly what those are. And the way to do that, if you've got moving parts, is that you want to build mathematical relationships. So you're going to build mathematical relationships. So when you're turning a crank, it's actually turning all of those things in the correct methodology. And it's not like you have to experiment with it. Every gear is designed to go at the rate that it's supposed to go in relationship to the other gears. And so if you're building something like that, you don't want to animate those things. You want to build the relationship of those things as they go together. Now, what you can do with that is then you basically put them on their own null. And the reason you don't want it, like some people will try to use physics and other things like that to have them actually push against each other. The problem with that is if you can't pull them apart while they're moving. So what you want to do is you want to set the relationships between all of those pieces. And the app that I would use, the free app that you could use probably for this is Blender. The app that I would use for this is Cinema 4D. You could make it look photoreal. You can put all those pieces together. And basically what you would do is you can open it up and you can have things coming in piece by piece and animating them. The other key is to start backwards. I mean, if you haven't done 3D before, I mean, every 3D artist knows this, but when people start, they don't do it this way, which is start with a piece together and then go back in time and animate it away. So you start with it where you want it, the whole assembly's all together, and you do the same thing with computer graphics, and then you pull things apart as you want them to come in, and then you can have them all come into that area. Now you can do other things like, for instance, in cinema, you can have in the rendering, you can build a box, and that box is a Boolean box that basically will cut all the objects while they go through it. So if you want to show like a cross section of a moving engine, you can actually draw a box through it, and it'll just show you that. And you can actually move the box back and forth, and it'll just show you the cross section of that as it moves through. So I think that once you move into something, again, you probably could do it in Blender. But what I will tell you is that the tools that you'll have to render a very complex system will be much better represented inside of Cinema 4D than they will be in Blender. These are motion graphics tools that are and 3D animation tools that are much more robust than Blender's very good at what it does for basic stuff and character stuff, and they focus on. But this kind of thing is not what, in my opinion, what Blender is built for. So Cinema is built for this. So I would look at that. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, so he wants to output a stereo vision version, a 3D version for the for the Vision Pro. Would you have to then, once you do your animation, then move your camera the interocular distance and re-render a second file and then sync them up? Is that how you do it? Or
there's stereo rigs built into Cinema. So you can actually set these. You can just
interleaved or some sort of stereo.
You can decide how you want to output them, and then the other thing is a lot of your editing packages, whether it's Resolve. I don't know as much about Premiere, but Resolve and Final Cut both have ways of bringing those stereo in and then rendering them out as needed. Resolve is probably the one that I've used the most in this area at this point. But you can bring those in, put them side by side. You can put them. There's a lot of different ways you can have them. You can output them as interleave, as side by side, as over under. There's a whole bunch of different ways. You just have to decide how you're going to display those for the output that you're sending them to. In the case of the
Does
Vision
anyone know what
Pro,
the Vision Pro uses for
yeah, it
file,
uses
file format?
yeah, it uses HEVC-MV, and so HEVC-MV is a format that's been in the MPEG, since 2015, but no one's really used it. And what it is it's you pick one eye, typically the left eye, as the hero eye, and that is the full frame. Every frame goes out in that. Well, within the P and B frames, you have a full one eye, and then the second eye is a delta of the first eye. So it's and so that way, if you have a monoscopic view, you can still see it. If you have something like the Vision, that would you'll be able to see it there. Now, if you're talking about, that's for rendering these out. If you're talking about actually viewing them as a 3D object and walking around that 3D object, now what you're talking about is converting all of that to a USDZ solution. So that's going to be a little bit more complicated, because now what you're probably going to end up needing to do is export, build those in whatever you're going to build them in Cinema 4D or whatever, and then you're going to probably take them into Reality Composer. And then you're going to build the relationships that I talked about in Reality Composer, and then you're going to export that out as an animated USDZ or a USDZ with dependencies, and that's going to be a different, probably good lab for us to play with. But it is so if you want it to be a 3D model, if you want it to be a video, Cinema 4D is a great way to do that. If you're talking about wanting to have a model of it, then getting into the USDZ pipeline is going to be where you're going to want to go with that. And that's going to be a heavier lift, but it is. I've seen a couple of these in Oculus where you can pull apart engines and put them together, and it is literally the coolest thing I've seen in VR ever. Like I felt like you're going to learn. This is the way to teach people how to do things before they touch something. And there's a lot of people who are doing, like, there's big transport planes that are used. Running them is in the air is $40,000 an hour, to run them in the air for these very large transport planes, giant transport planes. And so what you want to do is you want to be in a simulator, but the simulator costs a certain amount per hour. And so then what you want to do is a lot of folks are building VR solutions so that you can sit there and do all the things that you need to do inside of the plane, get through a whole bunch of hours of understanding what it is, so that you minimize the number of hours in the simulator and you minimize the number of hours in the plane, and to get to the same level of skill set or a higher level. And so I think that what I think West is pushing against is going to be a huge use for anything that you think about on YouTube, like, how do I build this? How do I do this? That kind of stuff is going to happen inside of the Vision and Meta, I think. But I think that it's going to be a big deal. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Art Aldrich in New York. I'm trying to use the latest NDI tools on Mac to bring in NDI audio sources into a digital audio workstation like SoundDesk, but do not see any sources available. I know this functionality is in the Windows version, and I thought Mac too. What am I missing?
Go ahead, Jeff.
It is not on the Mac version. Another reason to use a PC for NDI if you can, because there's more tools available for it for free. That said, I'm dropping in Meccano right now a link. AVSono, my friend Pablo over there, is a great third-party developer for Macs, and he has Macs actually all platforms, but he has some great tools for NDI audio. One of those being a VST type plugin for being able to use NDI audio into the Mac to be able to go through their normal process.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Douglas Carmichael. When Apple sent AirPod Maxes to influencers in advance of tonight's event, they mentioned the AirPods Max would make their viewing experience, quote, more spatial. How well do the major social video platforms, and he's noting YouTube and others, support spatial audio?
Go, Jason.
YouTube supports first order ambisonics and first order ambisonic with head tracked stereo, which is 6-channel audio at 48K. I don't think Apple wants influencers to be streaming that on YouTube, though. So it's one of those, well, maybe.
There you go, TJ.
Yeah, I tried during the last question to see what, at least on iOS, would work with AirPods Max. It looks like, at least on iOS, it's spatializing stereo, so it's not supporting the 5.1 stream. I'm not sure if you hooked up AirPods Max to an Apple TV, would that be the only way to get the 5.1 into those?
Yeah, you can. So Apple can stream. I mean, with HLS, it just depends on what's on the other side. So if you tag that, so the way this works is that you build you can go up to about 916. So this is so YouTube is at 5.1 and ambisonic. To set it up as Dolby, you can go up to 916. The reason we mostly for live do 916 is because there's 16 channels in a SDI feed, and so we don't, and 916 is enough resolution for that. When you say that it's Atmos, Atmos is typically a mixture of beds and objects, but in our live pipeline, we have a hard time managing the metadata of the objects. And so we tend to build the whole thing in an Atmos environment where we have control of those objects, but they get folded down. And this may be different for what Apple's doing. I mean, it's been a couple years since I've had to define that platform. But typically that's going to get folded down into channels. Those channels are then going to be converted to EAC3, and that's going to be sent into the encoder, and it's tagged as an Atmos solution. And so on any Apple device, it's going to come in, and in the manifest that is generated for that HLS stream, it's going to say if you it's going to have Atmos in there. It's going to list it as Vision and Atmos, most likely. Most likely, this show tonight will be a Vision and Atmos experience, and they'll probably take advantage of the high dynamic range, and that's my guess. I have zero information so about what's going to happen tonight, but they will. But then they fold it in. So any Apple device. Like if you have AirPods with an iPhone, if you have if your Apple TV is connected, like I have a 7.1 system in my house, I'll be able to hear it. I would be able to hear it if I'm not on MacBreak or whatever. But you should hear it in the house. You should hear it on your phone. You should hear it in the iPad. You should hear it with a computer running Safari on a Mac. So all of those will support the Atmos tag. Because this is not really a channel or ambisonics, it's actually a tag that just says this is Atmos, and every Apple device made in the last 5 or 6 years will know what to do with that. Some PCs may be able to do that, and some Android stuff they do typically have. I mean, if you open up that manifest, you can always. To get to the manifest, you can typically go into Chrome, of all things, take the stream from Apple and put it into Chrome and go into developer tools, and you'll see the link to the manifest. It's a kind of a public link. You're not doing anything secret. That's where you can find it. And you can open it up. It's just a text document, and it'll tell you what everything that's available to the player. And in that player, you'll see whether they're supporting things that would be really targeted towards Chrome users. So they do that, but the support of Atmos on Chrome and Windows has typically been pretty hit and miss. And it's mostly because it's not built into it automatically. And so like Windows didn't want to pay the $1 or whatever it was per computer to put it into something that they didn't know if people would use. And so as a result, it's just not in a lot of Windows machines. Yeah, go ahead, CJ.
But in terms of platform, regardless of what you're watching it on, if you want the true spatial, if that's really what they're going to broadcast, then your options are just HLS through the browser, or are they going to stream it in the TV app?
Oh no, they'll stream. I'm sure you'll be able to see it on the TV app. And if you open it in the browser and you AirPlay it to the TV, it doesn't go from your phone to the TV. It actually sends the HLS manifest to the TV, and then the TV picks that up and plays it out. So if you want to see, so it's not like, and this happens generally in AirPlay. If you're watching something that's an HLS stream, and the phone will send. It doesn't always work. Some things like YouTube were hard to make this work. I think they got it working now, but it's handing off that stream to the Apple TV. It's not. That's why there's a little bit of a delay there. It's waiting for the first segment. So the TV is, but it's handing it to the TV. It's not playing it to the phone and then to the TV. That would be so. Yeah, you would be handing that. And when we test stuff like this, when we test HLS or Atmos and Vision, we very often will text each other a link, and then we just take that link in our phone and just AirPlay it, and it just jumps into our whatever our system is and plays it out, and we can see if it's working or not. So, yeah, it's going to be it's cool. We've seen in the manifest, Apple's been playing with this for a long time. Like this is they've probably been working on this for at least 6 or 7 years. Like it's not and that's the way Apple works. Like it's like you don't even see it. It's sitting under the covers. But if you open up the manifest, you've seen things happening in the manifest as they've started to work through adding these. And this may be, a bit of a show and tell. If they're sending out headphones, they mean business. So it's going to be, I bet you it's going to be really cool. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Funchak Georgie in Dharamshala, India. I have a Dremel stand without the drill and bits. Can the panelists recommend a compatible drill and bits that fit in the stand?
Jason.
I'm aware of no Dremel stand no Dremel that isn't a Dremel that fits in the stands, but I can tell you that I really like the 8220, and if you can get a foot pedal with it, the extension arm will make it all the more handy.
Go ahead, Courtney.
That's a tough order because the Dremel has changed the style of their cases over the years. If your stand looks like this, usually they'll have if it's a drill press stand, usually it'll have a place here on the right where it has a hole that the end piece drops through, and then it has some means of securing the top of the drill at the top. And I looked at, choices. You can get a variety of Dremel type drills from China, the Goa key, which looks similar, but the cases are slightly different, and it depends on whether the end is the same diameter as a Dremel or not. Here's one for like a kit for $34 plus a 10% discount if you click on that coupon. So you might check and see if it says what versions of what Dremels it's compatible with. But like I say, I've got 3 Dremel drills, and they're all different diameters and all different shapes and sizes and powers.
Go ahead, Bill.
Same experience as everybody else. I actually have an original Dremel that has a bunch of accessories for it. I didn't get the stand, but I got a different stand, and the tightness of the holders that hold the Dremel upright in something like a drill press mount are very specific for that model Dremel. I wouldn't try to use a third party. I've also got a third party Dremel that I loan out to my friends when they ask me if they can borrow the tool, so I don't have to break up my actual Dremel set, and doesn't even come close to fitting. So I would be wary and try before you buy.
Yeah, and since we're at Halloween, I will say that one little trick to the whole thing is that you can do really good jack-o'-lanterns with a Dremel-like tool, but don't use a Dremel because it will ruin it. It doesn't take, and also you have to cover pretty much everything around you with
I
like
made
everything
a big
around
mess
it.
one year.
Yeah, it is, but literally a Dremel-like tool. Here, hold on, let me see if I can find one for. I was going to see if I could find it. Hold on, I'm trying to find a.
Yeah, you can get a Dremel-like tool for $20, and it's
yeah.
disposable.
So this is a one that I did, basically with a spackling knife and to get the major things. But you can see all like the semi-transparent teeth and everything else is all Dremel. So and I actually used a Dremel for that, and then it was covered with pumpkin. Anyway, so it is the.
Wait a second. What's the right bit to do pumpkins?
I used all kinds of different bits. I was like little ones for the teeth. Between the teeth, you need the little thin ones and then the bigger ones.
Little wire brushes and things?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that would be a
Oh, yeah, it
total
does.
mess.
It does. It's a big mess. And it's just everywhere. Like you have to cover yourself with like a lab coat, to do it. I didn't do that the first time, and it was just soaked with pumpkin. So anyway, but it is the, and I learned that by talking to someone who does this like professional. He was a professional jack-o'-lantern, like that's what he does for the last like week and a half or 2 weeks before Halloween, is do these for all these stores. And so I looked at him, he was putting some up, and I said, how do you do that? And he's like, oh, Dremel. like like that, like it was obvious, like we all know that, like that's how you do this. So anyway, try that. Next question.
Wes Decker in Fort Worth, Texas, up next. Thank you all for creating this great show. I ran Apple's enterprise services team for years and spent much of my career focused on many of the solutions covered here. Watching Office Hours daily feels like coming home for me. Cheers to you all. Thank you, Wes.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I think we would love to hear some stories if NDAs would permit it.
Not even
come on the
stories.
panel.
It sounds, West. It sounds like you might have a skill set here that would be useful on the panel. So if you've done all of this stuff for years, we won't push you on the stories. We'll tell Jason that he's got to keep that to himself.
Okay.
But if you, we'd love to have you on the panel. So, and that's a quick reminder. If you're interested in being on the panel, you can go to officehours.global/panel and sign up. And we do meetings. There'll be meetings. Anyways, and we talk about it. But most importantly, get you kind of on the path if you're interested in doing it. It's a great connection with a lot of people, and it really does make a huge difference. So, West, we're going to openly invite you to join the panel and be part of this conversation. Quick reminder, of course, you can ask questions throughout the hour. You can throw them into Mokana if you want to right now, and then vote on those questions, or you can use this little QR code right there, or just go to the URL askofficehours.global, and of course, you can use that 24/7. So anytime you come up with an idea, you can throw those questions in, and we will file those into the system as we go. Next question.
And it is yet another one off the QR code that's been very active today. Paul Wallace, this time from Cedar Creek, Texas. Guy, my X-Reel keeps rebooting on both Android and iOS. Any idea why?
Go, Guy.
Before I jump into this one, I just wanted to throw one over at Jeff Keithley for a reason to have these. So I was on my rower over the weekend, and I wanted to keep an eye on a vMix show. And so I put the X-Reels on and launched a RDP client, which is the Microsoft iOS version, and the whole tablet turns into a mouse. And so you can move the mouse around and cut a show. You can start the stream, record everything. It's really cool. And the keyboard pops up too. So to answer Paul's question, I jumped on the X-Reel Reddit forums, and it looks like there's other people that have had this, and there's some steps, and I'm going to go ahead and put that link in chat as to what the steps are, but I would also update the firmware, but the link will be inside of the Mukana chat.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I bought one because a friend of mine was just raving about them, and I'm returning them today. I sat Sunday morning and watched the Sunday morning office hours, and I did not like the experience. I felt like it was just not there yet. I'm looking for better. I'm still looking for better.
Yeah, I think that I had COVID a couple weeks ago, and I was laying in bed, and I was stuck in the bedroom, and being able to watch, I watched all of Mission Impossible on it with my AirPod Maxes and that thing. I just laid there and watched a movie. Was not perfect. There are, even with all the lights off, as Jeff probably noticed, there's a little bit of reflection in the glass that I noticed that was there. That's probably the most problematic thing that I had. Otherwise, it was a pretty good experience, and I'm keeping them because I can see on flights me wanting to just I already tend to put eye shades over so that I don't have to interact with anybody. so I have eye shades and Maxes, and I put like a blocker on my eyes, and then I have my thing, and I just kind of like disappear into my world until I'm done. And that's always been a very dark world that I just kind of like am just completely off. The idea of being able to watch a movie while I was doing that seems pretty fun. Yeah, go to Courtney.
Yeah, constant rebooting. I don't have any of these, so I'm not speaking from any kind of experience. But it could either be a software bug in the drivers, or it could be power consumption. It could be it's pulling too much power from wherever its power source is plugged into. If it's plugged into your Android device or your iOS device, it's sucking too much power. And then when a bright scene comes up or something, it could be causing it to, causing the phone to reboot or the device to reboot. I don't know if they're smart in the device or not.
Go, Jeff.
I guess my biggest thing about them was I liked the quality. I was impressed with that. The visuals of the comfortability probably would be something I would say that wasn't as great as I expected it to be. After watching for 2 hours, it started to wear on me. I used to wear glasses. I had LASIK to get rid of wearing glasses. So the whole concept of putting glasses back on to me is foreign. I don't want to do that. Short of wearing sunglasses, for brief periods. But my biggest issue I had with them is I was playing it off of my iPad, and I have a 12-inch, one of the larger ones. I had it sitting on my lap, and I looked down and up. It's the exact same size virtually as if, and the quality on that iPad was so much better than having to deal with one of the things that bugged me is I moved my head just a little bit, the screen moved at the same time. And it's such a different experience, and it's not truly a surround experience to me. So it's not like being in an Oculus where you're around a world and you can look around, but your screen's still there, and then you can look back, which basically mimics a real world environment, right? That screen moving around the whole time in front of me. I bought them specifically because of guys saying how great they were with the video quality and things like that, and I agree with it. That it is really good. I tried running a remote camera with them. Same issue. It was just every time I moved my head, I didn't realize how much I moved my head around until you have a monitor in front of you moving at the same time all the time. And so to me, I just found it like it just wasn't there yet. Maybe one day we'll get there, but it's not there yet for me.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, there is another device that you can get called the Beam, which that's what pins the screens in space and then allows them to move softly. I don't use it as much as I do just my regular iPad because I don't like having the extra device, but it is small and it runs off batteries. And so if that battery dies during a show, it doesn't have a way to charge it, so you're kind of stuck. So there is a lot of growing up for the product to do. I'm just excited at what it can do. I mean, especially when you're looking at a multi-view. I know you have the Sienna monitor app, Jeff. So being able to be in another room and be like, hey, camera 2, watch your focus, you're a little soft. And they're like, what? He's in the bathroom. Like, how did he know? So instead of having all these massive monitors around you all the time, you can just slip them on and still keep an eye on a show.
And there are some support within, I think, Nebula, which is their app. They are building up support for 3D as well. So it is a monitor for each eye, and there are ways to separate that out. So I'm more interested in the 3D aspect of it than I am in the. I haven't tested it enough yet. I've been pretty busy, but I'm working on that because I know that they have that in development. So next question.
Next one comes to us from Art Aldrich in New York. Art says, thoughts on the Mackie DLZ Creator as a live stream mixer. NDI audio mixing is interesting.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Absolutely. If you've got the means to buy it and it fits your needs, channel count being one of those needs that is great. I live in a Dante world already, so for me, I lean towards Dante solutions, but I also work in the NDI audio world too, quite a bit. They did implement it a really good way, and I'm really impressed that they came out, especially Mackie. I'm sorry, but Mackie hasn't had the greatest of track record in the last 5 years or so. I've got 1604 still sitting on the shelf that are still working, but when I went digital, I went to Yamaha and other choices. I feel like that the first implementation is probably one of the best first implementations I've ever seen, though.
Yeah, it looks interesting. Yeah, I will admit that I always worry with Mackie about just build quality. They used to be build rock solid mixers, and then they kind of went through a mode where it feels like they were trying to cut some corners, and the quality of the faders and everything else weren't there anymore. Kind of felt like an Alesis. So hopefully that's kind of picked up there, and but it does look interesting. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Douglas Carmichael. Has anyone tried the control suite from OnLX? It looks like a solid Mac OS alternative to Universe, and he's got a link there.
Yeah, we've looked at it. I've looked at it in the past. I've opened it up and played with it, and I have to admit that if we weren't working with Universe already and we didn't have a whole bunch of stuff built as a Mac user, I'd probably be playing with this a little bit more. Given that we already have, we're embedded, I just haven't had time to just experiment out of the gate. It does look like it does a lot of things. It's probably not quite as mature as Universe is, but it does look like an interesting product, and we probably should take a closer look at it. Because again, I'd love to have something that worked on a Mac that did what Universe did, but we've been really happy with Universe as far as the control end of things, to make what we do here in office hours work. Next question.
Jack Ruppel in Breckenridge, Colorado is up next. What do you use to reduce the size of your QR codes? Mine are made with Chrome extension, and they come out huge.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I wouldn't typically recommend Chrome unless you're at a pinch and you need something quick, but QR Factory is good. And recently, Adobe Express offers the ability to create QR codes. And if you save them in a proper format, like a SVG or PNG, you can do what you need to do with them. There is no, I guess there's a percentage of, if you're using them in video, percentage of screen size to QR code. I generally make them as small as I can make them and still be readable, and you just got to test it over and over again. But they're very horsey, ugly-looking things, and you just don't want it destroying your video.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, QR Factory is the way to go, and this is a codified thing. My guess is that in Chrome, you are getting an SVG, which is why it looks the size of whatever you put it in. The readability level here, so here's askofficehours.global, and as you can see, it's updating in real time. And if I change this, down to 200 pixels, it ends up, what medium means at 200 pixels is really different as, as what it looks at 512. So, yeah, it is guess and check, and if you can use QR Factory, try to avoid Chrome. I think that's a weird way to do it.
Yeah, what I will say is that I wouldn't. I guess I would say that I'm not a big subscriber of the run of the mill. Like I can write a script and it'll just put out a QR code. It is accurate. The problem really is it's just really ugly, and so a lot of us use a lot of other creative tools to make it look nicer. As Jonas, probably the best answer last week was Jonas's answer for QR codes. Like he just broke down all the things about what are required, so you can go back and look at that. And then of course I just said, well, Android should fix their problems. So that was a little rough, but because most of the reason that you have to follow any rules for QR codes is because of that the Android reader is so bad. So the Android reader is just a complete disaster, and as a result, you have to follow all these stupid rules. When we do other QR codes for everything else, and we just said the reason that you'll see like askofficehours.global across the top of our QR code, that's mostly for Android users. And the reason I put it under, and I build my own URLs for every single thing so that Android users can type the thing in, because I don't trust the QR code, because I want to make them look nicer, because I'm putting them in front of tens of thousands of people at a time. And so anyway, there's a lot of creative tools that you can use. I use QR Factory because I don't want to use any online tools. The online tools actually produce prettier QR codes. The problem is a lot of times they put something in the middle, so it's bouncing through them. So if you stop paying the subscription to them, it stops going to you, which is very risky in my opinion.
Bitly.
Yeah, so I don't like to have anything in between. But there's QR, like dedicated QR websites that produce an incredible amount of opportunities to make it look more interesting. And so I think that's being more creative is really great. We just hope that Android someday actually learns how to use QR codes, because they're only 30 years old. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
I'm not sure what your Android problem is. There are about 20 or 30 different Android QR code readers that are third party.
That's the problem right there.
But that doesn't matter. It has to be from the photos. It has to be able to. I open up my camera and I get it in. The one built into the Android phone is
the
like
camera.
That you can open. The camera is a disaster, and that's the only one that matters.
Camera app.
Yeah, you can never. We never assume that anybody is ever going to download an app. like that is if you want actual response, you don't want anybody. You just always assume that they have to be able to hit it with what's built into the machine. Well, and Android. Like, I'm just going to keep on pounding on this, because I'm hoping that somebody at Google will hear that they need to dedicate 10 people to making this go away, and it'll probably take them a week to get this working. So anyway,
one thing I was going to point out is the Chrome generator that's built into Chrome generates QR codes like this, has no sharp edges on it. Notice it's dots and rounded corner squares. So maybe that's one of the problems with the accuracy of reading. And as you shrink those down, those little dots kind of aren't as discrete as the squared off squares that are in your QR codes on the Apple, or the ones that you've generated.
Well,
maybe.
Yeah, the squared off ones are the standard. That's and a lot of us do prefer those round ones. or roundish, just because they look nicer. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, the trick is to get it at the right size to fit the screen and still work. Here's a spot that I'm just working on, and I hate those things. I mean, they're ugly, and if you put the logo in the middle of it, it's just distracting. So I'm shooting for the best readability as opposed to something that I can dress it up and make it look better. The only thing I did to dress it up is make it a complementary color to the background.
Yeah, and because we go crazy, like we put those in, we get rid of that white background, we just stick them in there, but we put the little we buy a short URL and put it right across the top so that it's that's kind of the error correction for anybody who can't read it. But we will uh like we take out that for a lot of not for well, we did that a little bit with our Ask Office Hours one, right? That you can see here. You can see that we used a black background instead of a white background. There is a white edge because we did find that most Android phones will, if we just put that little white edge around the QR code, that the Android will see it for whatever reason. And so, but we went gray over black, and then our logo and the text is white. What's interesting about that is in HDR, that just blows. And it's like little lights. It's actually pretty cool. So so anyway, so that's what we've been kind of playing with there. But for other things, we will blend it right into we just make it a color that's complementary to what we're doing over top of that back color, and it works just fine. So for when I say that, I mean we did one where we had we put that up, and we got 6,200 questions in about 20 minutes. So I feel like it worked for somebody. So anyway, next question.
Next one comes from Lucas in New Jersey, and Lucas asks, I was curious on your thoughts on getting a network-attached sword system or Pegasus device for a single editor that uses both Mac and PC and needs to access both. Should I be editing off the NAS and or Pegasus system, or on my Mac and then backing up to those devices? Thanks for the help.
I mean, it seems like I would probably lean towards wanting to have a NAS at that point. If you're going to have both your Mac and PC talking to it, it seems like a NAS would be the best solution for that. So I don't have a Pegasus, there's probably Synology, there's a couple other, and then of course OWC makes, I think, a couple NASs that we talked about last week that you could also look at. So, but a NAS is probably what you want if you're doing multi-tenancy. So that's really where you're going there. Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a specific one, but yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
We've been using a 45 drives NAS for a while now, and they're beasts. They are just beasts. Now, they're not cheap. They're not a $2,000, $500 type NAS, but they are for real. And definitely they compete with some of the other bigger editor-based NASs out there. And great service. Can't help but rave about them.
And Chris?
Yeah, I think the real issue with NAS versus a single drive like a Pegasus is if you're a single editor. Hi, Mom. If you're a single editor, what do you need a big network attached thing? I mean, if you're in a work group with 5 or 6 people, now you might have multiple machines. Yes, that could help. But a single editor, honestly, I have a like an 80 terabyte QNAP. And I have a 60 terabyte carrot byte. I called it a carrot. His 60 terabyte OWC, and I use the OWC all the time. The NAS is just total waste. The NAS is a byproduct from pre-COVID when we had 5 edit suites attached to it. Single editor, I just get a single drive.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I could answer that question, Chris. Your and my friend Doug saves every single second of video he's ever shot and recorded, and he just keeps filling up NASs and NASs and NASs and NASs. And he's one I also got into the 45 drives. He's got over like 200 terabytes online, I think, at any given time. He wants to be able to instantly access it. So there are certain people that may need that. I don't think he does, but whatever. That's how he works.
We save our rule at our business always was, if you saw an image on a screen, I have it. And I do. It's not attached. It's on removed OEM drives that I've scanned. I've done this a million times. I scan it and it's accessible in a database. And I go, oh, I need to go to the closet and grab archive number 257.
Yeah, same thing. We went with PixelCore. We had probably 2,000 drives that were there, that were all of the drives that we had for every show, and we could find what a client asked for the past 6 years in 15 minutes. Like with and it's just a matter of naming conventions and scanning the drives and everything else. But 15 minutes though, we could have it up and be looking at it and copy it over, and it was everything, every single project we could go to, and it was all offline. Like it was like they looked like we have the hard, these are old spinning hard drives, and there was a cassette, and they just sat in there. Now what we did is there was a schedule in our archivist. We had a full-time archivist because we generated about between 5 and 10 terabytes a week of content. So we had someone that just sat there and managed that. But what they would do is they'd slowly, when they had nothing else to do, they'd be working through the drives, and they would connect a drive, search for something, and then put the drive back in, and that would just keep the drives fresh. It's just they just work through the drives, and they'd get through the drives every couple of weeks. Every 6 to 8 weeks, they'd get through all the drives, and just have them all just kind of staying fresh as we went through it. The biggest problem we had with that was not that we ever lost any content, because we had 2 copies of everything. That's the other problem. But we never lost any content. The hardest part was when we closed, we had all this footage, and a lot of it has outtakes and big companies and everything else. And so we had to, it was it doesn't seem like a big deal. We drill pressed 4 holes into every drive, and then struck it with a sledgehammer, and then put it in a box, and we just slowly worked through all the drives to do that. And it seems like, that won't be that big of a deal. It'll take a couple days, weeks. It was 2,000 drives. Is a lot of
blisters
drives.
on your hands.
It's just like it was a thing. So anyway, it was a much bigger project than we expected. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Andy Kokendorfer in Viera, Florida, testing low-cost capture cards with our Panopto HLS encoder. Missing any data points? Test video seems okay, and he's got a link there to a spreadsheet on Google Docs.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, Andy, I applaud you for putting this together. I was working on something similar because we wanted to know what's the difference between like a $19 capture card that's just a bare bones, no name, nothing, HDMI to USB adapter, and there's a big difference. And I applaud you for putting together this spreadsheet that shows all the points that I would put. I don't think I have anything to add. This is the important one here. Is it bringing in 444 color, 422? When I ran my test, which I'll ship you this device if you want to test it out, but this one was the winner, the Roland VO2. And they actually have a smaller capture device as well, but I would really trust Roland's capture cards. If you guys haven't seen the video that's in for his testing, this is what it looks like. So it does have the X-Rite color checker. It has some footage, and then it's got the I'm not sure where he pulled this from, but it's a really cool, gray with colors changing. So I applaud you once again for putting together this test. I really want to see what you think of the Blackmagic ATEM's input, because you'll probably find that the color is not accurate. So it's one of those things that everybody should know the results. I mean, no holds barred. I mean, you don't have any vested interest in it, because I made a capture card. So I actually had one that I've designed and had made in China, and it does not hold up very well in these tests, but it was an expensive one. And so I'd love to see the results with some of these higher end ones. Like it looks like the Magewell so far, the winner in this, but that's in the like $300 range. And most people want to get a Condor Blue, which you can see in that test that Condor Blue kind of bites. So if your show is going out and it matters, pay attention to Andy's tests. Thanks again, Andy.
You go, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I really liked how this was set up. My real question is should you be using more than one type of video? At first I was wondering, is this something where you put in different cameras? But then I realized why you're doing this. So would a different type of video give you some slightly different results? I'd love to see it with, because you had the action fight scene, maybe something that's out in daylight, and see how that works as well.
Yeah, the SRI we'd also look at that. The SRI signals would be something we'd love to push through these. This is probably the best analyzation of inputs I've ever seen. So really well done. And I think that it's a great way. It's a great way for us to, and it'd be great for us to keep building on this because there's so many of these, and there's little ones on Amazon, and being able to show what the delta is. I'd love to figure out a way to show these with a graph. Oh, it looks like the Ultra Studio recorder was like ones across the board, like and the pile was
The pile
really
looks perfect as far as color reproduction.
yeah,
The
as well as the
pluggable does too.
pluggable,
Yeah.
like interesting. That's interesting. So so that's an interesting. Curious about that. Anyway, so anyway, I think it's a great start. Let's figure that out. Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm going to do the announcements on the other side of the hour because I wasn't paying attention, and we're going to jump into the second hour. We got distracted. This is what happens when we don't have a second hour coming up and we're not paying attention to it. A quick reminder, welcome back to the second hour, but a quick couple announcements real quickly on the tail end of that is tomorrow we're going to do labs this week. So in fact, we're going to do labs for the month. So if you've got ideas, put them into the second hour ideas. We're not bringing in outside guests because we're doing a lot of tests. You can see, like, for instance, we're a little contrasty right now. We're going to try to fix that by Wednesday. And so we're going to be constantly we're ringing out the second system or the mirror system that John Wallace has. And so we're going to, as we work through all of those things, we don't want to have external guests necessarily. And then we're going to turn on another system and then another system. And so over the next month or two, we're going to be reordering. I think the goal is by the end of the year, we'll have actually 3 identical system or near identical systems running. And then we're also, as a backup, we're testing on Sundays. You'll see us test. We're using the Zoom Studio tools so Sundays are a different process. And what we really realized as we started to, as we had to make this move at the last minute from 3210, we realized, how much pressure we were putting on ourselves by not having any backups. So like we can't take the system down for a week and work on it. We can't like rebuild it in a way that made more sense. It was a little bit of a hive of wires, and you'd want to take it down and put it back together, but you couldn't because we would need more days than we had. So by building some backups, I think it's gonna give us a lot of ability to innovate as we kind of go forward. So anyway, it's we're pretty excited about it. But we'll be doing labs tomorrow. We're gonna talk about countdown clocks because I've done that in the past, but we're gonna kind of go very, very slowly. I'm not gonna try to demo it. We're just gonna kind of go through it. People can ask questions. I can talk about how I build those countdown clocks and why I build them and why I don't use off the shelf countdown clocks. I'm pretty opinionated about that. I know you never think that I'd be opinionated, but I believe in building countdown clocks that look like they're part of the show, and we'll talk about what those look like and just noodle with it. It's not going to be the same. On Wednesday, we'll have the Korg Nano Control 2. We're going to talk about loopback and the Nano Control. And I just have to say, if you haven't seen on our website, it's featured right now, so it's easy to find. Chris here did a 11-minute video, and it's stunning. It's really, really stunning. Like, it's really, really good. And it talks about how to use loopback, how to get it set up, how to interact with the MixPre 3, how to tie that in with the Nano Control 2. And so this is a model that we're going to keep on trying to test in the future, which is, here's a video a couple days before the show. Watch the video, you'll have better questions. And if you can, try to do parts of it. Even if you don't have the Nano controller, try to do the loopback part. You can download a 2-week version. You can kind of play with it. You can noodle, and we're going to be doing kind of more of those kinds of things, with that. So that's a great. I would go up to just go to Office Hours Global on YouTube, and you'll see it. It'd be hard to miss. I think it's right at the very top. It's not at the top. It should be at the top. Anyway, so. If it's not, somebody moves something again. And if people move things that I move, I'm going to be really angry. like someone's going to get a bunch of angry emails. No, not at the top of I don't know about that, but at the top of Office Hours Global in YouTube. And then Thursday, Anatomy of a Commercial. So we're going to break down what it took to put together a commercial. Bill's doing that. And again, these aren't going to be like presentations. These are kind of opening things up and talking about them. And what we're trying to do is not have it be a bunch of a big presentation. Like we're going to open it up in the second hour. Note that if we don't have enough questions for the first hour, we'll just start early. Like we're just going to kind of, like this is going to be much more informal than we've had while we're working through the other bits and pieces. On Friday, we're going to have the office hours migration. We'll just talk about how it's going, like how we're doing, and give you some feedback. There it is. There you can see it. It's on the top there. And then the weekend, of course, will still be Q&A on Saturday. We're not testing HDR until we're just going to keep on doing what we're doing. And on Sunday, of course, not only will it be introspection, but it'll be inside of the system, the new system. We're trying to figure out how close. We know that we can't get to where we are now inside of Zoom, but how close can we get, and how many features can we add, and how many things can we get, so that if we ever had to run the show without, if we have to get to a point where we run the show without any hardware and we're just using Zoom, how close can we get? And the idea is we're going to do that every week. Like just every week from now on, Sunday is going to be done inside of Zoom, so that we can keep on triangulating that and just making it as close as possible as our kind of backup to the backup to the backup kind of thing. So we're and then that I think will also, we already saw some idiosyncrasies that Zoom is logging as something they need to take a look at. So our pushing at it, I think, will help it not only us get better at it, but improve the product itself. So we're excited about that. Also, a quick reminder that we're going to get a lot more aggressive about the show testing. So there's a show, we have the show workshop, and really is turning into a workshop. So it's at noon Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. And this is the weekly lab for learning how to be a panelist, or learning how to be a reader, or learning how to do it. But we're going to be also, if you want to take your Zoom ISOBots and be part of that and jump into that, we're going to open that up for you. So take a look at the email, because there's a webinar link, join link, because we're going to be testing again. This is another place where we're testing, doing this inside of Zoom and kind of making that work. And so if you want to bring in ISOBots and so on and so forth, check the email out, and we'll go from there. All right, let's go ahead and go back to the questions, Bill.
The next question comes to us from John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. It's specifically for Jeff Keithley. He says, could Jeff kindly describe how to use an NDI discovery server and when to use it?
Kindly describe this, Jeff.
I'm always kind. At least I try to be. The real reason to use one is if you're bridging different subnets, would be one way. That was one of the original reasons it came out. The other reason is because you need to be able to get the list of NDI sources that you have on your network. And if you have disjointed networks, meaning two different subnets, two different areas, even physical areas could be that way, like in a large school environment or something, or a large business environment. If you have different subnets, then the MDNS is not going to talk across those. So that was the original intention. It is developed into being a much more robust tool. We use it in the cloud extensively because that is the way to use it, because MDNS doesn't work there. So it really kind of depends on how many sources you have. If you only have 2 or 3, 4 or 5, maybe even 10 sources, it depends if you want to run that. And it's a small little service that can run on a Windows server, or even on a Raspberry Pi, or something running Linux. You could run it off of Linux too. It's not necessary, but it does make things a lot snappier whenever you get to high NDI counts. Our typical show, we're using somewhere in the 40, 50 NDI in and outs. If that's the case, then yes, it's absolutely a dream to work with. And your list the thing is, it populates a list. Like if you open up NDI Studio Monitor, you say, I want to see the inputs, boom, it's there with the NDS discovery server. If not, MDNS got to take a little time. So yeah, it just really depends on how large of NDI network you have and what you're trying to accomplish.
Next question.
Next question comes to us from Jack Ruppel in Breckenridge, Colorado. Since iPhone 15 has USB, can it be used to drive the Oculus Quest? I have an Oculus app on my phone already.
I have no idea. So yeah, we'll have to take a look at that. One thing I will say that if we have time on Wednesday, we'll play with this. If not, we'll. This is the. This just showed up over the weekend. This is the Dante USB-C to Dante adapter, and it just reminded me of this because connecting to the 15. So I'm going to try to connect Dante audio to an 15, iPhone, which would be interesting. But as far as connecting your iPhone 15 to Oculus, I don't know if you can do that or not. I have great doubts that you can. Go ahead, Jeff. You're gonna say something?
Yeah, it was a little clickety there. Yeah, that works already. That was one of the main
Oh, okay.
reasons I got an iPhone 15.
It
That was
works. It works with Oculus.
oh no, not with Oculus. Sorry, the Dante box you were holding up.
Oh, it does. It does work.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
nice, nice, very good. And it just shows up as that's your mic.
Mhm. Yep. Just like
very
the other
cool.
USB did with the 42 adapters that you had to have in line.
Exactly. Very good. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Douglas Carmichael. Would a productized Office Hours 2-point-something or 3-point-something platform also act as an enterprise MCR that could manage routing and transcoding video and audio content within and outside of an enterprise? Basically, a locally hosted enterprise Restream, Riverside, StreamYard type thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Locally hosted, most of us in the business call that on-prem, so on-premise. Absolutely. But I'll be honest with you, most people that are looking for enterprise level would not be looking for a Blackmagic solution in the middle of that. If they were looking for enterprise broadcast level, they're going to be looking into Ross. They're going to be looking into Grass Valley. They're going to be looking into higher end gear to be able to create more of this virtualized MCR. Is it happening? Is it possible? Absolutely. We do it ourselves. So yes, in answer to the question, yes.
Yeah, one of the things that we do think that what we're going to see what happens is the interaction between. It's not so much building any video show, but building a show like the one that we have. We think that we're getting more requests from companies like they watch someone's watching Office Hours and they want something that runs like Office Hours. And so they're not asking to do anything. They're asking to do this thing. And so I think that we're going to kind of dip our toe into like how that works. I mean, I think O9O is going to try to make that a service and just see how that looks and see if people really want that. And that means they're using Makana. It's all tied in. It's figuring it out. Like, does that make sense in that process? And of course, John Wallace, the system that we're running right now, they're going to use it internally, for their own stuff. So we're, so that system's going. What I hope to do is next year push the outer envelope. We're completing that kind of push to the outer envelope of quality, 4K HDR 5.1. At the same time, we're going to start ramping up cloud, over next year. So we're basically the goal is to be able to have something that is all running in the cloud by 2025. So over next year, we keep on testing it. You'll start to see testing happening on a weekly basis. Probably on Saturdays, you'll start to see us do exactly the same thing we did with HDR, which is that you'll start to see this other system running, and you'll see the Zoom system running on Sunday. On Saturday, you'll see this other system that's cloud somewhere in the future, depending on who wants to work on that with us. But you'll start to see that happening. But the goal is as we kind of push the end of where we can go with quality, we start working on getting it out of hardware altogether and get it into the cloud there. I think that there's somewhere in the future where that then becomes something that is just a node that people can do that does everything that we're doing here. We were able to figure a lot of this stuff out because we were using hardware, in my opinion. But the goal is then to codify it into something that is something that you just turn a key and it just does all the things, managing the questions, managing all the bits and pieces, tying all those graphics in, building an entirely dynamic system. But that's going to take some time, to make that a turnkey solution. But that's what we're kind of thinking about right now. And that would be version 4. Or actually, that's version 5, making it turnkey. Just work in the cloud is version 4. So anyway, next question.
Liberty White in Atlanta, Georgia. Our friend, for a remote 2-person video podcast recording, what platform will provide the best video and audio capture? She notes Zoom, StreamYard, or something else, and why?
Good, Chris.
So Liberty, this is a multi-sided question. Short answer, too long didn't read. I would recommend Riverside. Now, let me say why. I love Zoom. We love Zoom. We are very dedicated to Zoom and all the work that Andy and the team there have done. But Riverside works quite well. There's some caveats. There's definitely some caveats. I will tell you this. As you know, Riverside records locally, so you're never going to get any internet hits. One time, I finished a Riverside recording. and it took 3 hours for the file to upload. Nightmare. Usually it happens in seconds. And then the other thing that I want to mention is that sometimes when we jump around between services, we sour on a service because it doesn't do a thing exactly the way we want it. I'll give you an example. When we do the questioner, the host and the questioner here, we have sort of a 60-40 split on the screen. When we were toying with the Zoom events system on Sunday, we couldn't do that. It had its way of doing it. And if we absolutely demanded, doggone it, it has to be 60-40, this is ridiculous, this doesn't work, I can't use this. It's true. But sometimes if you just sort of back off a little bit and go, what can you do? What can you do? And Riverside does some neat stuff where like it'll give you a 2-up at the end of the thing with both of your people. I believe it even has like a little editor built into it. I would definitely look at it, but from a big picture thing, when we look at services, sometimes you want to open your mind to what they do offer and say, it may not be exactly what I want, but you know what? It does work, and it solves so many other headaches. If I just kind of say, okay, we'll go for a 50-50 split.
And usually what I do is we'll go with 50-50. I call this practical perfectionism, which is that I'll just go with what does the system have right now, but then I'll make a bunch of requests of whoever's making it, and like poke at them, over and over again. Like for instance, we're going to move. So we've been doing the Michael Krasny show, graymatter.show, on Zoom for the last year or year and a half, and we're moving to Squadcast this week. So, and the reason is specifically because of what Chris talked about. Can't do local recording. I don't have any idea. Even though Zoom talked about local recording, don't have any idea when that's actually going to happen, and we just have to cut bait. So anyway, we're moving away from Zoom and into Squadcast. So we've been doing R&D inside of Squadcast, and what we found was that we could, have two people talking back and forth. We can then go in as producers separately and pull full res screens live from each person that's in the Squadcast. So we can actually then reproduce, and then we can drive that into a switcher and reproduce what we want. We're not going to do that at first. At first, what we're going to do is take the side-by-side. This is exactly what Chris was talking about, 2 side-by-sides. And then we're going to put a mortise. Well, the first one, we're probably just going to be happy that we have 2 side-by-sides. We'll stream it. But where we're going with it is we'll put a mortise over top of them so that it just packages it nice with a nice frame. So we'll have the gray matter or whatever that we want, and it'll just sit over what Squadcast is delivering to us. But where we're going with it is reproducing exactly what we were doing in Zoom with Squadcast, which is 2 full screens that go into a switcher that are then tied together and put out there. And then, but what we're getting on top of that is the local recording. And so we think that within a month, there won't be any difference in what you see in the live stream for graymatter.show from live, from Zoom versus Squadcast, except for the fact that we get a much better record on the other end. I have to admit that the Riverside thing, it was the thing where does it still do that weird crop?
Yeah. So I was going to say there's a couple other.
Makes me so mad. Like you just like, and that's just BS. It's just
maddening.
And they're doing it to get you to pay more, right? I mean, that's the. Yeah,
they absolutely are. If you buy the enterprise
thought
version,
process,
you get the full rest.
That thought process is undefendable. It's undefendable. It's why I won't use Riverside. It's like it's literally that one little thing. They crop the video if you don't pay enough. It's just
they crop about 10 or 15%.
Yeah,
and their excuse is, well, it's less to stream, and you just have to be able to hear what they're talking about. Also, I will say this because they focus on local recording first, uploading second. The viewing experience sometimes is really bad. It's really bad. And I get text messages during recordings. One of our clients refuses to use Zoom. They just like, nope, not going to use Zoom. We'll use Riverside. Fine, whatever. So I get these text messages. Oh, is that dropping out? What's going on? It looks really bad here. It's like, it's okay. It's okay. Calm down. Yeah. And it gets old making those excuses. But I totally agree. The enterprise thing. And the other thing about the enterprise is you go, well, how much is the enterprise? Well, why don't you give us a call? We'll chat about it. It's like,
it's like, you're in trouble. Yeah. So I think that my my biggest complaint about Riverside, why I won't use them, is because of their business model, not because of their technology. It's just that I just feel like it's, it's just, I just don't, and Squadcast so far has been, everything's super transparent. It's all, I think that they're anyway. So I think that they're a better solution for that, in my opinion. So, and I've used them on and off, not as a user, but as a participant. When I get asked to be on podcasts, almost every single time I'm asked to be on a podcast, I'm sent a Squadcast link. So I've been the receiver of that for years, maybe 4 or 5 years. And I've just never used it. And so Jeff Cohen has been the one that has been really spearheading that on our end to figure it out. He's done a great job. And so we're doing the first one. We'll see how it goes on the first one. We know that we'll get a great record. And so we'll see how the stream goes. But we think that that's going to be a pretty good solution. It's a little bit more cumbersome than ISO if we get to more than 2 or 3 people. But we think that it'll be worth it. Next question.
CJ Clavel in Downington, Pennsylvania, here on the panel says, speaking of XREAL, besides plugging into devices like the Switch, what's the benefit of the Beam? I know that there are supposed to be apps, but it's pretty bare bones as far as I can tell.
Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, so as much as I appreciate the early aughts iPod aesthetic, click wheel looking thing here, I got the Beam hoping that I could, without needing to run Nebula or something like that, do the 3 displays in space. And then when I opened it up, it seemed like the only real thing I was getting was, okay, you can now pin the monitor. And it's I'm not sure what I bought.
Hey, go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, so you could pin a monitor, and then the other thing that it does is it's a Aircast or a Miracast or a Chromecast type device. So instead of having something like your iPad with you, you could, especially if it's a client, you could just give them this $100 thing, and it's pretty durable. If it falls, you're not breaking a $1,000 iPad. So you would control what they're seeing on another device and cast it over to them via AirPlay. So that's where I found it to be the most beneficial. But you're right, it's not like Nebula of having a Mac and doing the 3-up. The other thing it does is that smooth tracking and body anchor are the other 2 things that this device allows you to do for the $119 or whatever dollars. I'm not using it as much. I like plugging it directly into the iPad and having my app so I can actually control things right then and there.
Does it fix the HDCP problem that you get with plugging it directly in?
A little birdie told me that I'll talk to you offline. I don't want to say it.
Go ahead, Chris.
Wow. Okay. I'd like to be part of that phone call. No, CJ, so from what I understand, you're saying that a product doesn't work exactly like it seemed like it was going to in the demo. Is that what I hear you saying? I find that hard to believe. That's shocking.
Fingers crossed that the developers give us some more apps for it.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's it depends on the pickup. Like you get apps starting to get built if there's enough people out there using it. So we'll see how that goes. Quick reminder that, of course, you can ask questions throughout this second hour. We will continue to answer questions until there aren't any questions left, or we get to 9 o'clock, one or the other, Pacific Standard Time. So if you can throw those questions in to Makana and vote on those questions, or you can put them into askofficehours.global. And you can use the little QR code that we put up every once in a while, but we're not putting it up right now. All right, next question.
Next question comes to us from frequent panelist Nigel DeSalle. When would I use a hypercardioid versus a cardioid mic?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Well, specifically, if you're in a noisy environment, if you have a cardioid mic, which is what I have my pattern set on my 414, it just means how far off access I can get. If you go to hypercardioid, it's going to reject more of the outside surrounding sound, maybe up to 90 degrees, and then it's going to start to fall off from that. The only disadvantage of a hypercardioid is there's a bit of lobe out the back of the pattern, and sometimes the noise could be back there and cause you problems. And if you're using a lav, it can be really critical, even if you could get a hypercardioid lav, because you want the lav to be omni. So if you're turning your head from side to side, it wouldn't be a problem. But if it was a hypercardioid lav, as soon as you turned your head to talk to somebody, it would drop substantially.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, Mitch covered a lot of it there. If you're using it to isolate sound from a particular direction, so that if you've got if it's just ambient sound all around, it'll help a little bit. because it'll eliminate a lot of the sounds coming from off axis. But if you have something like a refrigerator behind the person you're wanting to point at, it's not going to help you out because it will accentuate the refrigerator as well as the person's voice. If the sound source, the unwanted sound source, is off to the right, 40, 90 degrees or so, it will help you out considerably in lowering the ratio of signal to noise ratio of the unwanted noise to the wanted noise. But be very careful in mind that it has to be aimed accurately, and if your subject is moving around, moving off mic, you're going to have to follow them with that hypercardioid. So a boom person is necessary if it's a moving subject. If they're static, it works great to isolate it from the rest of the surrounding sound.
Good, Bill.
And just a helpful note, remember that all microphones are more directional as you get higher in frequencies. At the low notes, particularly bass, everything is an omni no matter what pattern it has. So if you've got a guy with a boom box outside your house and they've pumped up the bass, there's no microphone that's going to get rid of that. So it's helpful when you're trying to pay attention not to think of a shotgun mic as something with that tight a pattern. They all are tighter the higher up they go to a certain degree.
And the short answer that I would give is almost never. like I've had so much trouble with hypercardioids that I try not to use them. Next question.
Next question comes from CJ Covell again in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. Does anyone have any experience with magnetic iPad stands? He's in pursuit of put everything on an arm, and this one looks pretty interesting, and he's got a link there.
Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, this really piqued my interest this morning because I've got kind of an iPad that's on a tripod mount that it's cinched into on a magic arm, and now I'm looking at this saying, oh wow, I could just pop it on and off. I know the magnets are really strong once I stuck my iPad to the side of a filing cabinet for an extended period of time, so I know that it works. I just I figured this is half question, half PSA of things that I think this panel would like.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Oh man, you're spending my money. Most of the iPads that I use in production are actually minis just because I find that they are less tedious. And to that end, the one that I've found to be most useful is non-magnetic, although the one you showed us is pretty promising. This is the one that I really like because it extends out and it allows you to do just about anything, and it locks. It's got a joint that will completely lock so that you can type on the iPad and you don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to kind of put it one way or the other.
Go ahead, Courtney.
I was kind of confused as to how this works because the iPad is aluminum, which is non-magnetic, non-ferrous metal. But what it is you put it into a silicon case that has neodymium magnets.
Well, the
built into
pros
the
have
case, right?
have a bunch of built-in magnets so that it can stick
Into
to the
the
Magic
case.
keyboard stand.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And they're, like I said, I've put it naked next to a good old-fashioned filing cabinet, and it's on there.
So I don't have any of the pros. That's why mine keep falling off the filing cabinet. But the one I think you pointed to does have a magnetic case. In case your iPad is not one that has the magnets built into it, I think it has some type of magnetic in there that holds it to the arm, the stand with the arm on it.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I will say that I got into the understanding the whole MagSafe thing way too late. Like it took me like 2 years to figure out what MagSafe was about. And I now have a MagSafe mount for my phone in the truck, and it's awesome. It is really cool. And I'm sure, if it works for the iPad, I would highly, highly recommend looking into it. It's just, the thing I like the most about it is one-handed, I can shift it from portrait to landscape. And I used to like, while I'm driving down the highway, super dangerous. I love the MagSafe mount in the truck. It's made, my particular one is made by Bullet Point Systems. Super cool.
Go ahead, Bill.
My biggest problem is that my iPad Pro lives inside of a case, and I love these cases that have a strap on the back of them because I can't tell you the number of times I want to use this in a field, either for monitoring video signals or taking notes or something like this. So the problem with this is that once you get into a case this thick, almost none of the mounting things work very well. I've gotten down to the point where if I want to put this on an arm mount of some kind, I have one that has a couple of big kind of feet on it and I can lay it back in there, but it's not as secure as I'd like. So for me, it's either naked iPad, which to me seems risky, or an iPad that is in something like this, and almost none of the mounting devices work for that. That's just a conundrum that I always face.
There you go, Jason.
ProClip USA, since we're on to magnetic mounts, ProClip USA has just about every single kind of car mount, and I use the magnetic mount. So a lot of the cost of ProClip USA is not where their ingenuity is. They will work with any car, and then if you get the magnetic mount, then all you need on your phone is a tiny little disc back there, and it won't interfere with MagSafe.
Go ahead, CJ.
One more on the theme of magnetic mounts. An iPhone case that is really, really strong is from a company called Magback. And one time, actually, Chris made me think of this story. I had one of these cases on my phone. You don't have to get them in clear. They're actually nice in blue and black. But I actually had it on the side of my car so that while we were on a camping trip, we could take a big group picture. But it was at the end of the trip. And then I left it on the car as I was driving away, and it made it 30 miles. And, the phone was fine.
That's great. My temptation would be to do something more. So, like looking at what you're doing there. All of my monitors that go around my thing are all based on Visa mounts. So they're all, I've got these arms that all move, and one of them happens to hold an iPad or my Wacom tablet or Wacom tablet, and it just has a clamp on it, and that's so I can jump between iPad and Wacom tablet. And the Wacom tablet doesn't have a way to do a magnet, although I bet you if I put a piece of metal on the back of it, it would. I may do that. But my temptation would be to look at something that looks like this. I haven't bought this, so I don't know. But this is this is a magnetic wall mount. So it's designed. It has a mount on the back, but it then in a hinge. But then that big plate is a magnetic plate for the iPad. You can see kind of a cutout for it there. And so my temptation would be to do that, and then to retrofit this back piece for either drill it out myself or just glue a Visa mount to it so that I can draw, but I'd probably just drill and tap this back area so that I could use that as with my current Visa mount system, but then have the magnetic piece to it. And I'm afraid you're probably going to cost me $69 as I try to figure this out, because it seems like such a great, being able to swap. I have to admit, I'm a little hesitant to swap between the one that I have right now, where I have my Wacom tablet. It's a little tricky, and so being able to just slap it on there might have me move more often. So anyway, interesting. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Paul Wallace in Cedar Creek. I opened my Android TV and got a message that, quote, Google Play just became Shop. Kind of unimaginative. What do you think this name shift by Google?
And this comes from the QR code. Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, I think the marketing department, I think a lot of people were confused by the Google Play because it sounds like a game portal of some sort. So people want to, that's where you look for apps on the Google Android TV system. So they changed, it used to be Google Play Store, which meant, okay, its store was the idea that it's a shopping place. But so they just changed it to shops because it's one word that'll fit under the icon neatly. And it describes exactly what it is. It's a place to shop for apps and things that you will run on your Google device.
Go ahead, Chris.
The word shop immediately goes to my wallet, which I find bothersome. I think one thing that may be in play here, no pun intended, is, Google is a 25-year-old company. And I think that there is a whole generation of people that might look at Google as like, the way it used to be. That's where we used to search for things. That's where my parents search for things. If I want to find something out, I'm going to go to TikTok like the kids do. So it may very well be just trying to distance themselves from the name Google. I know I avoid it.
Yeah, I think that I do think that Google is kind of growing up. Like I think Play felt very informal, and I think there was a lot of Google that was cutesy in the past that's becoming a little less cutesy as they kind of move forward. And so I think it's great. I think moving it to Shop from Play always to me seemed weird. I think maybe they wanted it. I think that they saw games as a bigger part of their market than it actually turned out to be. Next question.
Michael Tan here in San Diego says, "Good morning. Any panelists have recommendations for powered USB hubs? Trying to use it for additional large Stream Deck with a Raspberry Pi."
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Michael, make your way over to OWC. You'll see a whole bunch of them, from big to like 12 to 15 type USB connections to it, to a cute little mobile one. The trick when you're buying a USB hub or a dock is to make sure it's got a decent power supply with it to be able to control or power all of the devices that are going to be connected to it. But I think the mobile version that they have would suit you just fine with OWC.
Go, Jason.
Or if you don't want to buy your own, you can supply your own. So this, I think, is the one that Mitchell is talking about. This is the OWC USB-C Travel Dock E. I have not used it with a Raspberry Pi, but I have never found a scenario, and I kid you not, rarely do I get to use the superlative never, but I've never seen USB-C where it doesn't do exactly what it's supposed to. And the QR code down there will get you right to where you need to be.
Go ahead, Chris.
Very clever with the QR codes there, Jason. I'm not going to do that. To me, I have one of these. It's quite good. I'm actually running 2 separate webcams through it right now, and I know that that's typically a bozo no-no. The webcams want to be plugged directly. I always think about what you're plugging into it. I think a Stream Deck into a hub is fine. Mitchell mentioned something about the power supply. The thing that's interesting about this thing fits in the palm of your hand. It's really small. The power supply that comes with it is like 4 times the size of the hub. It's like I was digging through stuff and I was labeling it. Like Alex mentioned that the Brother Cube is like the
Cube
wall
Plus.
labeler.
Cube Plus.
Cube Plus, yes.
Don't get the Cube. I got the Cube first, but get the Cube Plus.
P-Touch Plus.
P-Touch.
It's the
What is made by Brother, yeah.
Wallwart labeler.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it belongs. Like, which of these things doesn't belong? This power supply for this Thunderbolt hub, I swear, it's 4 times the size of the thing. It's crazy, ridiculous.
A lot of the OWC stuff is that way. It works. Go ahead, Bill.
Just another vote for the one that Jason showed us. I have that same OWC small connector, small dock in my voice booth. And whenever I travel, I pull it out of there because it's so small, convenient, but it does a lot of things. And boy, it's so nice to be in a hotel and realize that they have a wired Ethernet connection so you don't have to be stuck on their overused Wi-Fi.
Go ahead, CJ.
One more, if OWC isn't your thing, another one that we use a lot with the business is from CalDigit. They make a couple really good Thunderbolt 4 hubs, but then this one is of the small variety, but has an external power supply. So that might be what you're looking for.
Yeah, and we have the CalDigits. I'm sure the newer ones are probably much better. The older ones, we had some issues with audio and video issues. If you ran your cameras or your mics through the CalDigits, we were having some issues with those, and so that's the only word of warning. But otherwise, I have a couple of them myself. I just don't run things through them. Next question.
Jesse Mills in the San Francisco Bay Area. Any new and noteworthy NDI router apps other than Rascular, Zen NDI, and Sienna, ideally controlled via Companion?
Go ahead, Jeff. Threw it right at him. No, never mind. I'll go with your guy.
Looking, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab it. NDI Tools, just what's built into NDI 5, should do the trick. KiloView Core is another one. BirdDog has BirdDog Central. If you need to actually do some kind of transcoding along the way, Intonor is another, and AJ has the bridge for those solutions as well.
Next question.
Funsak Dorji of Dharamshala, India. Hi, panelists. Can you recommend a digital asset management DAM software, open source or paid, for a small NGO with a lot of historical photos or videos? Thanks.
I have to admit that I would love to say for my own personal use that I'm using photos as my dam, but I'm trying to think of good. We haven't needed a commercial digital asset management software for quite some time, and I'm coming up as a loss to really thinking about exactly what would be the best one there. Go ahead, Jason.
You're going to be really okay. Yeah, this has gotten much harder because Photos actually works now. I would say Lightroom. Lightroom might be your best bet.
Lightroom could be, yeah. But I again for a smaller group, and there was one that had, I don't know. I have to think, and let us know. Ask that question again in a couple days, and then also let us know if you're looking for Mac or PC, because there are some Mac ones that I think that I might be able to come up with there that are good, but they may not be cross-platform. Or if you need them cross-platform, let us know. Next question.
Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona. Follow up for the iPad stand. Can it work in your own case, or do you have to use it naked?
Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, looking at the website, they definitely want it to, at least they want you to assume that it's going to be naked. But like just looking at this, I don't know. If you had a really thin case, you could probably get away with it. But if it's not doing magnetic pass through, you're gonna have some trouble there.
Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry about that earlier. The case that I use on my phone, Jack, it actually, what did you just call it, CJ? Magnetic pass-through. I mean, it even has the little icon, which means it's got to be doing something, right? I think you could probably find an iPad case also that works.
I think that I wish that there was something that was, there isn't one that does the same thing that my phone case does. This is the Peak Design phone case. And what's nice about this one, thank you, Osmond. The nice thing about this is that it's a system. So it hooks to tripods, it hooks to, I have a car snap in, I have lots of different things. So it's a whole system that's based on the case. And it does charging and it does, but you'll see this little square. If I put it up there, you'll see that little square. That's actually an attachment for the tripod connection. And the advantage of that is that it locks in, and it really locks in. It's not just the magnet anymore. So it's a really this is the best. I mean, I have the only confusing thing is now I have multiple phones with Peak Design, and my wife has one with Peak Design, so we have to figure out whose phone is whose. But that's the only problem we have. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
It is surprisingly hard. I just looked for a magnetic pass-through stand for the iPad Pro, and there really aren't very many. So yeah, I think it is absolutely intended to be used naked.
And Bill?
Yeah, in branding, we're starting to see the circular things, and I saw that on Chris's as well. I think that's kind of this is good for MagSafe, the new generation of MagSafe. I, too, have not seen any of those on iPad cases to this point. Might be coming.
Yeah, go ahead, CJ.
What you'd want to look for, I think, is if you go into this, if you go onto their site, they do sell a case to go with it. But regardless of the case, you want to look for, does it have the little 3 dots that it's going to have the pass-through for the smart connector and any sort of lines indicating that there might be magnets on the back.
And who sells that case?
This is from the company that makes the stand.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, very good. That's interesting. And who's the company again? Can you repeat that?
It's a KUXIU. KUXIU. I've never heard of them, but
cool. Next question.
Another unpronounceable set of letters. This from Douglas Carmichael. The YouTube spatial audio specs mention bringing your Mono 360 video into your spatial workstation plugin within your digital audio workstation. What spatial workstation plugin would you use for such a workflow?
Your 3D, your video, as far as video goes, I mean, we don't know what we're going to see at the Final Cut Summit on, Bill will tell us, but I am going to venture that there will be more spatial, things to talk about between Logic and Final Cut and Motion, and maybe Motion, we'll see. Because I think that Apple needs a development tool for Vision Pro, and I am completely spitballing. Like I have no information, no insider, I haven't heard any vibrations in the force. Like all of it is just, I am just guessing that Apple has these 2 products, and the primary value of those products to Apple, and I think is going over the next 2 years, is going to be delivering video solutions to to the Vision Pro, and so I think that the time to do that would be at the summit. So let's see what happens then. Outside of that, I think that there's some 360 tools that are already built into Premiere and into Resolve, and of course the high end 360 video stuff is all done like in Nuke. So those are the things to think about as well. Next question.
Paul Wallace, Cedar Creek, Texas. What electric van is best for hauling around equipment and having a studio? And that's a QR code question.
Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
I look at the new Ford line of Ford Pro. They have a whole line of electric vehicles. The Transit Connect, they have an electric version of that. This one over here, the E-Transit. And then they have the F-150 Lightning, which you have the ability to haul around a bunch of stuff. Plus, it's got a dually cab, so you could put a little bit of a mobile studio in the back seat cab, and drive around in your Lightning Pro. A lot of them are sold through their fleet sales, so you might check with them if your local dealer doesn't have them. They're designed for fleet sales to companies that have a fleet of electric vans or vehicles. There aren't too many commercial electric vans out there, a few crossovers, but they're just now starting to come in. The electric crossovers, or the full-size electric crossovers, are just starting to come out now.
Go, Jeff.
Being a Texan and in Southeast Texas, where oil is king, I have been fighting the fight and pushing electric for quite a while. So I've got a couple of Teslas and a Model X and a Model S, and we've outfitted our Model X to build a studio inside of that. I think many of you have seen that. I have also vans, because vans are still necessary whenever you need more space and you need more capacity to carry. The problem is with vans and electric, I've been following them, been looking at them, been salivating over them. They just do not have the range unless you're strictly in town, under 100 miles at most. 120 miles is the range on the Transit, and that's nothing for us. I mean, we're doing 500 to 800 miles a day when we're driving across country. So for us, it never worked. If you were doing plumbing, maybe small, a little bit of just shop calls, things like that in a van, I could see where an electric van would be the case. Just recently, Sprinters have, the Mercedes Sprinter has pulled out their release. I think they were like 225 or 250 miles for a range, which is not bad. But the problem you will always find now, if you're not in the Tesla camp, is until the NACS, which is the connector that Tesla uses, is now available to be used by other manufacturers. There's a lot of others that have signed up for it, but the problem is they're not abundant yet to use what they call the Magic Dock, which allows you to adopt back and forth between the NACS or the other connectors. If you're not using that and you don't have the supercharger network at your disposal, you could very well be in a pinch. And they're just not there yet. There's too much loss. There's not enough battery capacity. And the only other manufacturer that I'm following is Bollinger, which have a new platform for what we would consider the mid-sized truck market. So like the little Isuzus, little flat fronts that we see here in the US, and more popular overseas with a box on them. Those guys are coming along, and they're coming along fast after the electric market, but we're still a ways away. I'm still waiting on my semis. As soon as they happen, and end of this month, Cybertrucks will be an option, but we're still a ways.
Did you order are you on the pre-order for the Cybertruck?
Yes.
Yeah, nice. Go ahead, Courtney. I'm sorry, Jason, and then Courtney. Jason.
Yeah, I think everyone wants this badly to succeed, and my immediate answer is the ones being designed today are probably going to be great, and that means 5 or 10 years from now they will truly be practical.
Go ahead, Courtney.
And one that I've been salivating over, it isn't out yet, it should come out around the end of the year, is the Kia EV9, which is a much larger version of the EV6. It is in Europe right now. I think it's coming to the US at the end of this year, beginning of next year. So, and it has a pretty good range. I think 280 miles, something like that.
Do you cross the beams if you get like a big Chevy 350, and then put 2 Tesla batteries in the back?
No, it really gets bad. There's actually somebody. You guys know I have a larger truck also, so an F650 there's somebody that actually was retrofitting Teslas into those. So they were taking
Nice.
out the diesel, the big diesel, and putting battery packs underneath it, and then putting Tesla motors underneath it. Yeah, it was.
I always feel like we had a we had a 24-foot trailer for a production trailer for Pixelcore, and we pulled it with a 350 and built out the whole back end as like all the other stuff that we needed and everything else. It was a great production thing, but it felt like it was how many gallons to the mile when we were pulling that thing. Like it just chewed up gas. Next question.
This one comes to us from Guy Cochran in Seattle. Money, no object. Oh, that's dangerous. How would you get a 4K feed from a trade show floor into the office hours system?
Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
Money, no object. I love that. Anyhow, I'd recommend the Switch. That's the best way to get there.
Yeah, go, Jeff.
Live view.
Yeah, money no object. We're actually working on this for NAB. So money may be an object, but I have a pretty close relationship with the Switch. so they were ready to help us with getting video out of New York, and we just weren't able to turn the New York one over. So we are looking at Vegas as far as it's a little easier actually for the Switch to support it there. The live view is great, and we've done that in the past, and you can get 4 signals out of it, and you get 4K and everything else. It is a little bit compressed compared to what we can do with the Switch, which is, I mean, the live view is running at 20 or 30 megs a second, depending on 30, I think when we go to 4K. We get up to 30 megs a second. The Switch low bandwidth version is 270 megs a second. So it's a different, and for the 4K, I think that's actually the SD, or no, that's the HD version is 270 megs a second. When you turn up the HD, I think it's nearly a gig. And they're able to supply a 6G signal back to us if we wanted to. And so the way we would do that would be, I mean, the Switch is with money no object, the Switch is the way to do this when you want to get completely uncompressed or nearly uncompressed footage, back from a specific location. That said, I mean, the live view is a lot more flexible, and we use it a lot, and we've been super happy with the results we've gotten from the 800. But the Switch is it's different. It's a different thing, and it's not just that we can supply. We can connect. We can essentially put an Ethernet connection into the system. So it's not just that we can, we're working on things with the Switch where we can control DMX, comms, everything is all coming through that pipeline. So there's we have two-way, and we have, we can send out multiple feeds. I mean, there's just an enormous amount of power, but it's expensive. Like, you are paying for a private fiber connection to between 2 points. So it's less expensive than using Vivix, and it's less expensive than doing it yourself, all the time. But the Switch is an entirely different level of stuff. And again, we're already working on that. We're already starting to do early planning for. We weren't able to do it, but we had the process of getting into New York got us really into a great relationship with NAB, and we're really talking about what we can do at NAB for Vegas. And so, but we expect to have a booth space and be able to support that booth space at NAB, and we'll probably have the Switch supporting that location with a live view, allowing us to go out into other locations, and probably a mixture of wireless, whether it's Teradek or somebody else covering. So when you think about, we think that we're finally going to, after years of doing coverage and everything else, we think where we're going to get to is a booth with low latency wireless out about a couple 100 feet out into it, where we can just be talking back and forth with the people that are there. And then a live view that has a little higher latency that we can go anywhere with, and potentially even multi-camera and everything else. So that, these things are all kind of, but we're now, all the work that's been done by all the teams is kind of culminating in that larger thing. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Couldn't you use a hybrid, use the Switch and then plug your live view into that? It has Ethernet input, right?
No, we could, but the point of the Switch, the point of the live view is that we go places we can't be wired to. Like, that's what we're going to do with the live view. The live view means that we can go just about anywhere except for where the Panasonic booth is in the central hall, like wherever it used to be. For whatever reason,
silence,
there is a code. Like, I can tell you, I've used
a
a live view so many times in the central hall that I know exactly where I can and can't go. The live view in the past has worked everywhere everywhere in the LVCC except for the middle where the restaurants are below and the restrooms are below. And there's this big concrete. I think it's just too much rebar there, but it's in that one transition point is where it falls apart. And it even did when we did the test the last time we were walking, it went, and then it came back out. And when you're off to the side, it works okay. But I purposely did not go into that area knowing that like that's the dead spot, for the live view. But outside of that, I've used live views at there for 15 years. And it works really well. So anyway, point is, the big advantage of the Switch is that the connection to our show will be measured in frames, single frames. Like we will be at most, it'll be, by then we might even be able to get excess into the system. And that means the connection to the show will be, very, very low latency. So that's the big advantage that we have. It'll be almost invisible, to it. In fact, any Zoom latency we have will be higher than what the Switch will do. So it'd be pretty exciting. So we'll see how it goes. Next question.
Jack Ruppel of Breckenridge, Colorado. Anybody using a small rig VB99 battery to power their USB 3 or Thunderbolt hub with SSD drive for ProRes recording, possibly?
I have not done it that way. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't supply enough power to do that. It's just not that much power. I have 3 of those, the 99s, and I use them like if you see the behind the scenes. We've shown some of the behind the scenes in the past. I got these V-mount 99s on the back, and then there's just wires hanging out of them. In fact, what I do is I take there's a battery mount that Small Rig makes, and I put that on rails, and then I take the V99 and I throw it onto that battery mount, and that gives me even more outputs from it. And it works. I find it to work exceptionally well. So I would highly recommend it. Next question.
Chris is in from Ottawa, and Chris asks, hello, Office Hours. I'm a big fan, so I wanted to drop a quick question on how to export the transparent video from After Effects, because I want to use this footage in DaVinci Resolve, and also wanted to ask if there are any place or websites he can do something which got cut off. Sorry.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Well, we can help you right here, and After Hours is another place you can go to if you want more detail. But in After Effects, what you want to do is go to the QuickTime and select the ProRes 444 codec. And then once you've done that, make sure that it's RGB plus alpha, because the transparency is created by the alpha. And once you've done that, you should have a file that you can just drop right in, and it will respect the alpha channel. In the old days, we used to use the animation codec, which occasionally I still do.
You still use the animation codec?
Oh, yeah. It's my favorite little buddy.
Sorry. I haven't used animation codec for 15 years, but it was like everything was exported out of animation codec for a long time. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. You just need 444 and then the last 4, and that's it. And it'll go right in.
Yeah. Next question.
Jack Ruppel in Breckenridge, Colorado. First order ambisonic mic with 4 or 6 SPDIF cables, audio to digital converter in mic.
I guess that's the question is there one? And I don't know of any that does a SPDIF output. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
No, I mean, SPDIF, it should only need one, right? SPDIF can do that many outs straight away.
No, it can do it, but I don't know of any mic that does that. I think you'd have to go into some kind of converter that's going to convert it to a SPDIF, like to make that actually work. So, the Sennheiser that I have here, the Ambio, I don't have it quite in. Maybe I do. Anyway, it's got 4 outputs. What you have to do is you have to have a converter box. Now the core that has 8 mics.
There's a picture.
Yeah, there's a picture of that's the Sennheiser Ambio, and that has that's worked pretty well. Now another one that haven't gotten out to testing because of this big move that we're doing is I did get one of these the little Zoom ones, to make it a little more portable. You can record it all in the mic, and it does have, I think, binaural out, but I haven't had time. I have it sitting here waiting for me to take it out, and I've been slowly putting together the system to build these. I know it sounds crazy, but when we get back to HDR, I have this really fun pipeline to build high dynamic range countdown clocks, which we're not going to talk about tomorrow, but I'll talk about it if you ask about it. Anyway, go ahead, Courtney.
Blinded by the clock. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
waiting to sing
exactly.
that little song. Now, if if you're going to put ambisonic and have SPDIF out, you're going to have power inside the microphone. So that may be one problem why there are no such things right now, because you'd have to power the 880.
Well, we do
converter.
power the Ambio. The Ambio is 48.
Yeah, well, 48 if it's coming in, but if it's SPDIF out, SPDIF
Oh, yeah.
doesn't carry power. That's the problem.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. Well, there we go. Look at that. Perfectly timed. We're at the end of our questions, and we're at the end of the hour. It's a perfectly timed Q&A. Really great panel today. Mondays are usually like, we're a couple of us there. We're ready to answer it, and we just had a really great collection of folks here. Hopefully, a lot of folks will be part of our labs and our Q&As and everything else. It makes a huge difference, especially in this month, because we're going to be kind of in transition. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think there's going to be parts of the second hours that are kind of reminiscent of the old days, where we're kind of fiddling about and looking at stuff. So I think it'll be really a fun shift for the next month, maybe two, as we make the transition. We're going to be working on a bunch of things. Basically, my goal is to actually try. We'll see. We'll have either 2 or 3 setups completely built in hardware in the next 2 months, by the end of the next 2 months, and also we'll have a Zoom solution that is reasonable, for what we're doing. And then we'll go into the new year with a lot of, and what that means is not just that we have a backup. It means I can take systems down and run them on another. I can go over and I can ask John, like, hey, can we run this for a week, like over there, and exercise it and work on something that we want to change or something like that. And we just haven't had that flexibility before. So anyway, thanks to the panelists for a great 2 hours of Q&A. Thanks to the producers for that really, really great set of questions that you all produced. Remember that you can ask those questions in askofficehours.global any time of the day. So it's really nice when we get in there in the morning and you're like, oh, there's not that many questions. And you go into the QR code and there's like a whole bunch of questions all sitting there. It's really nice to be able to just move those in. So go ahead and throw those in any time of the day that you think of them. The best time to ask a question is when you think of it. So that's one of the great things about this new system, is that you can do that. But thank you so much for all the great questions. And thanks to the incredible team that has the lift, not just, not just into the hardware, but doing the Zoom yesterday and all the things that are happening. The development team is doing just an amazing job at making this happen and putting all the things together so that we have that. And we just really appreciate everybody's contribution to that. It's an amazing group that we've kind of coalesced together. So really, really, really awesome. So thank you so much for all the great work. We traveled 76,000 miles. That's 123,000 kilometers, and that is 608 million bananas for scale. All right, let's jump into after hours. Green. Oh, there we go.
Oh, green flash, sunset.
Exactly. I've never seen the green flash. I've heard of the green flash.
Is that an NDI thing?
The more
NDI,
the more rum
the
and
green
tonics
flash. It's
that you
the,
drink,
it's
the
the
more
global
likely.
thing.
the global NDI failure.
It's the
Giant
credits
mosquitoes
Halloween
are
costume.
here.
It's the credits Halloween costume. They're the green flash.
Yeah, that's right. It's dressing up as a green screen.
Remember that I'll jump into after hours right after the Mac break thing today. So hopefully we'll all get to talk. We'll try that as a different thing, I think.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
5
What is
o'clock.
5, 6 p.m. then?
It's at 5 o'clock is when we're doing it. Yeah, and so
Yeah,
it'll be
5
probably
o'clock
5:30 or
EST.
6.
Yeah.
The show, it's the announcement itself is at 5. I'll be surprised if it's more than 20 minutes, but we'll see. I mean, without a big pomp and circumstance, I don't know.
8
if they,
Eastern is a tall order.
You gotta try. All right. See you guys.